You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy M., where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy M.
Episode 37, Soak in the Moment with Dorothy Fuchs Yeager. Hey, Brave Girls. So on today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing my fellow PR public relations practitioner and super uber connector friend, Dorothy Fuchs Yeager. She owns Purple Dot PR, where she produces events and does media relations for a variety of clients in our hometown of Baltimore. She shares the importance of building relationships and how establishing strategic partnerships can help you to create a reputation in the marketplace as a go-to resource. I think you'll love her tips around selling and how to sell yourself to prospective clients and how she's been successful using these techniques at landing both small and large clients when she's competing against larger PR agencies. We talk about her Brave Girl story and how it influenced where she is today as founder and CEO of her own firm. She's truly a super connector, and she shares why being a jack of all trades has also been a strength that has served her and her business well. She talks about what she learned from her previous sales jobs and how it taught her to really understand that you need to sell to people who are looking for what you have to offer. Dorothy's a lover of storytelling, music, and movies, and she explains how she uses her passion to relax out in the world. Dorothy recently came back from a trip to Europe with her husband. It was the first time she really soaked in the moment on a recent three-week trip where she was inspired by the history, the architecture, and just the people and culture. Her dedication to the community started at a very young age, and she advocates on why volunteering is a really good thing for your soul. She shares a few stories about her work with the nonprofit community locally and why she thinks we all need to be out there helping others. So I think it's time for you to meet my friend Dorothy and hear her Brave Girl story. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Today I have Dorothy Fuchs Yeager with me from Purple Dot Public Relations, and she is one of my colleagues in the Baltimore metro area doing public relations and marketing. She's been out on her own for quite some time, and so I just want to welcome you to the show, Dorothy.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. This is exciting.
Yes. So I know that you have your own company, that you've been self-employed, I guess, since 2003. So quite some time.
15 years. Wow. The time goes by really fast.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about what you're doing in the marketplace now. I know you have lots of different projects, lots of different companies, lots of different industries that you support. And talk a little bit about some of your clients and some of the stuff that you do with your clients.
So I do public relations, marketing, grassroots marketing, special events. And, I kind of stay in a specific lane because you can't be everything to everybody. At my bailiwick, I do a lot in media relations. I really enjoy that. And people like to hire me for that. And same with special events. It's a very detail oriented and not everyone enjoys that kind of work. I have clients that are mostly in food and wine and travel, hospitality, tourism. I also do some small business and I do lots of events. So I have some really great clients. Royal Sonesta Harbor Court is a client of mine, and I work with them on a retainer basis. I just got finished doing a huge project, which was Fleet Week and Air Show, which comes to Baltimore every 2 years. And that was like a massive event, hundreds of thousands of people coming to the harbor. And I was in charge of all the media relations and marketing and working with a marketing committee. That was really great. I do work with small businesses like Ma Petite Shoe. And I've also represented a number of different restaurants. I do the Maryland Irish Festival I've done for over 10 years. So most of my work is here in Baltimore. But I'm fortunate that I have a good mix of clients. Some are nonprofit, some are corporate. And many times the corporate offices, what I find exciting is they're larger companies, but they're looking for somebody who really, really knows the local market. And Baltimore is quirky and odd and fun. But it does have its own personality. And so you really do need to know the market. So when you're trying to figure out, strategies and ways of doing things, we're not like other markets that are closer to us, for instance, like Philly or DC. So.
Right. And so you've got those close relationships with the reporters and both print, broadcast. And so you know what's going to work and what type of content they're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's come over many, many years of, of a symbiotic relationship where I work with media people, they work with me. Also just doing partnerships out in the community. So sometimes I, hook up a nonprofit with a corporate client because it's good for both of them. Many times when I do events, sometimes they're festivals and that kind of thing. Sometimes you're related to public relations. So maybe it's a ribbon cutting or it's a grand opening or it's a, some kind of promotional thing that's happening within a company, but it's an event in and of itself. I've also done a lot of work with like Maryland wineries and the beer association and things like that. So that's like a great example of, yes, they do, festivals, but the festivals really talk about them as industries, about them as farmers, about them as small business people. So, and one of the things I really get jazzed about, I love to do, is I love to connect people. So whether it's connecting a nonprofit with a corporate or whether it's just connecting cool people that I think will be really awesome working together on something.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you are a connector, and I think that is definitely plays to your strength. And I guess also having a small business as opposed to being in an agency setting, which I know you've got experience there, allows you sort of the freedom to find the work, but also have a variety of clients.
Yes. And I do like having, like exactly what you said, different personalities, different ways of approaching things. Some of my clients are really laid back and cool and fun. And then some of them are, a little more zipped up, a little more, corporate. And I kind of like the mix. It's kind of interesting and fun. And it keeps me on my toes, to be honest, because with smaller companies or companies that are nonprofits, they have smaller budgets and you have to be super creative with what they have. Corporate clients, you really have to work within a team and you have to be a little nimble and you have to be willing to work with different types of people who see things different ways. And many times you're working with people who are the bottom line kind of people. So you have to know what your ROI is for certain things. And so it keeps me on my toes. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So, and when you were in the agency world, I know you did a lot in the event space, sort of like massive, large, big production, creative. Yeah.
So one of the things that one of the ways I sell myself, because it's been interesting to me, even over the last couple of years, I compete many times against agencies. So the way that I kind of tout myself is I say, I'm able to see the big picture because I'm a senior level person. I'm able to think of the strategy and to work within an organization regardless of its size and really talk about the audience and what the core messages are. But I'm also equally able to do the details. So I say big ideas, small details. That's kind of my mantra. And I find that many PR people, not all, like to do one or the other. They like to be the ideal person, but they don't really want to be bothered with the details. Or they don't want to be responsible for all the ideas and working on a higher level. They'd rather just be the worker bee. So I like to do both.
That is true. Yeah, that's very unique. I agree with you. I think most people are one or the other, not both.
And
not skilled at both.
Yes. So when I competed against agencies or other people in my space, sometimes it's an advantage because I can say I'm a senior level person. I've been doing this a very long time. I'm always willing to learn new things, try new things, whatever, but I have a lot of experience. So, when you hire a company or an agency, sometimes you might get someone with less experience working on something. So when you hire me, you get me. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I like to think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. So take me back to when Dorothy was 12. And what kinds of things were you doing when you were 12? Because I'm sure it foreshadowed all of this.
It did. And it's very funny that it did. So I'm the oldest in my family. So I was a complete overachiever, type A, straight A student, teacher's pet. Of course, I was in student council. And in junior high school is the one thing that really makes me laugh, because when I was in junior high school, I was the treasurer of the student council, but I was still almost like the president. Like I was always in charge. I was writing all the speeches. I was the one back in the day, you would take cardboard and you would paint things on them, when you were running for an office. So I would do that. And then of course it came for the big dance, and I'm like, oh, we're going to have sparkly stars, and what kind of music are we going to have? And how are we going to make this event really fun? Okay, this is like junior high school. I think I was in like 8th or 9th grade or whatever. And I like to be a leader. So, but I like to also bring people in. I like to participate as a group, have the teachers work with us. And I was such a goody two-shoes. So I always made sure that, whatever I did was on the up and up, and that I was, doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think it parlays into what I do now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Being a connector, making sure everybody feels included, being the leader, making sure the event goes off without a hitch.
I also think that when I was in college, or even in high school, so I think the downside for me in high school was feeling like I was good at a lot of things, but I wasn't an expert at anything. I was very good at English, but I was never going to be a novelist. I was very, very good at music, but I was not going to be a musician. I was okay at sports, really not going to be an athlete. Okay at language, but not going to be a linguist. So, I look back on it and I think that actually is a strength to be in public relations and communication. So you're not a master of anything, but you're a jack of all trades, and you know enough about a lot of things. And I feel like that's helped me a lot. Whereas in high school, I was so depressed about it. I'm like, oh, I'm not good at anything. Really, really like an expert at it. I was never an expert at anything. But as I got older, I found that to be a strength.
Right, right. So when you were in college, what did you study in college?
So I started off in foreign language, and evidently I'm not very good at it. So I thought I was. I took like 5 years in high school. My French teacher says, oh, you should take French. You're very good. And I had a teacher that was from France, and I was like, wow, I thought I was good at it, not very good. So then I studied, I wanted to become a teacher, and I was told I was way too far outside the box. But I thought that was a good thing as a teacher. And two of the professors like, I think you'd be frustrated. I think that you wouldn't enjoy it. You should try this thing called mass communication. I said, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to give it a whirl. So I took a history of radio, and I loved it. I felt like I was with my peeps. It was just amazing. And I took communications classes. I took public relations. I took journalism. I took television production. I just loved it. I just really excelled at it. I still did my music, and I did some art classes and things like that. But I felt like but it took me a little while to find it. I didn't find it right away.
Right, right. And then when you got out of school, you went to Maryland Public TV?
Well, I worked for the March of Dimes for a while, but before that, I think everyone in life has to have some crappy job before they find like their real job. Yeah. So I did door-to-door sales. I sold like home improvements. I did that. It's horrible. But I got to tell you something. It taught me to be really humble. It taught me to communicate very succinctly, because you got 2 minutes to get in the door with someone. And then from there, I worked in sales. I sold credit reports, and I didn't really like that job. But again, being in sales, having to sell yourself, again, looking back, I feel like that sets you up as a profession, even if don't have your own business, that you understand yourself, you'll understand what people are looking for, what their goals are, not what your goals are, what their goals are. How can I work with this media person? How can I work with this corporate person? How can I, this colleague, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. Like, and not looking at yourself, like looking at what are the goals of other people, how can I work with that? So then I worked at the March of Dimes, then I worked at Maryland Public Television and the being a Railroad Museum, then I went to agency work.
And when you were at the Railroad Museum, what did you do there?
I, wore a lot of hats. I was in charge of public relations, marketing, the small, tiny advertising we had, but I also oversaw visitor services, the gift shop, group tours, and catered events. And I also reported directly to our board. So it was quite a lot.
Yeah, at a young age too.
Yes, and one of the things I really liked working with the board, and I liked coming up with strategies. We did like a 5-year master plan that was interesting. But I equally loved walking through the museum and seeing these little children come in and wide-eyed, and some of the kids I could tell had not either really been to a museum or didn't know anything about the history of our country through the B&O railroad itself. So I sometimes it was just I would stop and I would watch these children and I would watch our volunteers interact with them, and it was really like it was cool sometimes to really get that. Like I was energized by watching that just as much as I was going to a meeting trying to talk about, working with our fundraising department, working with our curatorial, working with our education department. How do we bring all those things together so that these children can learn some things, and families too, of course.
Yeah. So you just got back from 3 weeks in Europe. So talk a little bit about that, because we were talking a little bit pre-show banter about that.
Yeah, so I have tried to been better about, taking time off, like really disconnecting, and I'm not very good at that. I go skiing and I work in the morning, and I go to the beach, I work in the morning. But for some reason, when I go to Europe, like because there's a time difference and because your phone doesn't always work or it's just difficult, yeah, so it was awesome. We went to Belgium and Amsterdam with two really good friends, and we were travelers. I'm gonna say we weren't tourists, although we did some touristy things. We really like to just soak in the moment sometime, or just walk down a little alleyway, or read something online and then go experience it. So I really love doing that, and I love learning about other cultures and other food and what other people find interesting, and just I think it helps me to be a better communicator, and I think it helps me to be better in my profession.
Was there anything in particular that really stood out on this particular trip that you were like really inspired by or in awe of or didn't
So
expect?
this is going to sound weird, but when we were in Amsterdam, like 90%, maybe it could be 95% of the people get around on bicycles. I mean, if you're on a bicycle lane, you're going to get run over. And if you jump in front of a bike it's insane. But I was inspired by it because I was like, they don't wear helmets, they just go. And everyone just respects each other's space. And it's in a more global way. First of all, of course, we're saving the environment because we don't have these cars there. And some of the lanes you can't have cars in anyway. But just to watch, I sat there one morning at breakfast. I must have sat there for a half an hour. I was just blown away by kids on bicycles and adults on bicycles and people going in between cars and scooters and people just making their way to work or making their way to breakfast or whatever. I just thought that was like really cool.
Yeah, well, it's not something that we see here in Baltimore.
No, not at all. We don't, I mean, we have bike lanes, but not like their bike lanes.
Right, right.
And of course, the other thing I'm always intrigued about when I travel is just the history of things, what the history means to the people who live within that area. Last year I went to Poland, and I'm half Polish, and of course I know the history of the Polish people, and they've been invaded a million times, but to be there with them and to see certain things that they have experienced, like sometimes I can't even imagine what that was like, being there, and that's where my family came from. It's kind of cool.
Right, right. Yeah, I always get inspired by the history and the architecture.
Yes, the architecture is amazing. So in Amsterdam, they have these little pulleys at the top of their buildings because their buildings are so skinny that to get furniture and you have to pull them up and through the windows.
Oh,
Yeah. Little cool architectural piece.
right, right. So did you get to go, so you say you did touristy things, but then you did other things too that were just sort of, you read about them and then you just would go experience it.
Yeah, so like every city we went into, like we went to see the Anne Frank house, we went to the Van Gogh Museum, we went to see a castle in Belgium. We went to, the big town centers and the squares and did those things. We saw some of the touristy sites. We had waffles, we had chocolate, we drank a lot of beer, But then sometimes we'd be like, let's just go explore. Let's just go walk around and see what we can find. And we did some research through some travel books like Rick Steves or Frommer's or whatever to kind of get some highlights just so we wouldn't miss anything. But then sometimes we would just be like, let's stop in this shop, or let's talk to somebody here. Or in fact, there was the hotel that we stayed in Brussels was a little on the outskirts, and right next door there was a guy who owned a tiny bar, and he was from Morocco. And we went in there one night and we just started talking to him. Like, how did you get to here? What brought you to Brussels? What do you find interesting about it? What did you do in a past life? He was a dancer. And but he opened this bar and he was just so fascinating to talk to. We talked to him for hours. It was great.
Right, right. Well, and you love people's stories. And that's part of what you do as a PR person is you tell people's stories, or you tell organization stories, and you get into that. So it was probably fascinating.
Yes. And I do like telling people stories because, especially when I'm talking about some of my nonprofit clients, I am amazed sometimes people take their passion and really make it their life. I mean, I do volunteer work and I love to help nonprofits, but I am not as driven as some people, and that sometimes really inspires me. I don't know how you do that sometimes. It's hard.
Right,
It's
right, right, right. Yeah, I was looking at your background thing that you gave me, and it's volunteer work for all you're everywhere doing work with a lot of groups.
Well, you know what though? It started with my parents when I was young, and they always instilled in me, partly because, when I went to church, I had to do volunteer work, and when you're in school, you did it. But really, it was my mom, and she was a stay-at-home mom. But when I turned 17, she's like, "You're going to register to vote." Women couldn't vote, and women died for it. So you're seriously voting in every election. I don't care if you like who the choices are or not. You need to do it. And to this day, I hear her voice. She's been gone. She passed away a number of years ago. But I hear her voice in my head telling me as a woman, I need to do that. And she just always did that. She was always cleaning the streams, or she was, volunteering at school or whatever. And she didn't do it just to do it. She did it because she really thought it was good for your soul. And she thought it was good for the community. And she thought it was good for us, as a mom, to teach us that. So, I hope that I honor her by always trying to make sure. And I tell that to students when I teach classes. I said, volunteer work, first of all, you can actually find a job that way, believe it or not. I've actually found, clients and jobs that way. That's not why I do it. I said, and then it's just good for your soul. So just do it. Quit whining and just do it.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. It's really true.
I find that, and I've volunteered for a number of different organizations. Sometimes people find me, sometimes I find them. And it is part of my work because I try to take a couple different clients and do pro bono every year. And it's hard because it's just me. I have a small business, and, I have to spend time doing proposals and going to meetings and doing work. And my office hours are odd. So, I try to find time to do volunteer work, and I try to fit it in when I can, but I think it's vital to do it. That's just
Yeah, because you're serving others.
Yes.
You're serving others. Yes. It's almost like the highest form of leadership in many ways, I think.
Yeah, so it was last year or the year before, I was doing work for Movable Feast, and they deliver meals every single day, 365 days a year. And even when we had the unrest in Baltimore and, Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day and everything. So it was a couple of years ago, I had a TV station that was interested in following Movable Feast while they were doing deliveries on Christmas Day. So I got up and I told a girlfriend of mine, and she said, "Oh, I have teenage daughters." And I said, "Well, I'll take one of them with me." And I was like, this is what life is like for some people. We're very lucky. We're healthy. We don't have problems. We live in a nice house. We have nice families, but not everybody lives like that. And not everybody has Christmas Day the way we do. And it was interesting. I think that by taking my girlfriend's daughter, she was like, wow, this was, first of all, she was really, afterwards, she's like, I'm really glad I went. I learned all about this organization. I didn't know that much about it. And I learned about people who give all the time. And I think she was inspired by it. So I like being able to do that and to take yourself out of the equation and see how other people live.
Right. Because we have so many blessings. It's, we do need to share. We do need to share. We really do. And you just don't know what people have gone through or why, it's not to be judgmental of their situation. It just is what it is.
Right.
At any one point in time, any one of us could be one paycheck away from the same situation. You just don't know.
Yeah. And I've helped cancer organizations because both my parents had cancer, and your health is the one thing that every single day you should be lucky you have, because you just don't know when something's going to strike you, and it could be anything. It could be heart disease, it could be cancer, it could be anything. And when it does, I've had lots of friends who've been devastated by it at young ages. So I love doing that volunteer work, and I love getting the word out about the work that they do. So I do a lot of work with Hopewell Cancer Support.
Right. I was going to say that's the one that benefits your tea that you do every year.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the tea, because not everybody knows about your tea.
My tea. So when my mother was ill, my mother had myself and my two sisters, so three daughters. And when we were growing up, she did what most moms did. She collects things for you. It could be a tea set. It could be, a piece of family history, whatever. And she had 3 little hope boxes for us. And when we were in our 20s and moved away, she gave us our boxes of our trinkets and toys, and really nice things, I should say. So she gave us these tea sets, and they were so beautiful. But when you're like 22 years old, you're like, what am I going to do with this French Limoges tea set? So when we got older, and unfortunately my mom passed away, she was in her 50s, she was young, we wanted a way to honor her. And we thought, wouldn't this be really cool if we took these tea sets, which were sitting dusty, in a corner cabinet, and use them and do a tea party. So we started doing it. We've done it for 15, maybe 18, I don't even know, years now. And we invite friends and colleagues to this tea, and we drink tea out of these really expensive teacups. And we talk about people who have survived cancer. So it could be breast cancer, any kind of cancer, but how we as a community need to support our friends and family and be there for them and give back to the community. But it's also a way for us in a personal way to remember my mom and to honor all the things that she did to give back to her community. And also, she talk about brave. I mean, she was really brave to have 3 daughters, and, she never really complained much about her cancer. And we found a diary years later, and it was hard for her. Like it should, of course it was hard for her, but, she just was still our mom, and she would do the best she could. And, she kept trying to be there for us, but it was really hard for her. And she, suffered through it, and,
Right.
The party's great. We love being able to do that.
Right. Yeah. It's such a great tribute to her, and a way to, like you said, not only give back and bring people together, but also to honor her, and remember her. Yeah. And all that she represented and all that she taught you and your sisters.
One of the funniest things about the tea party that we love to do too is we love to talk about my mother as a real person, because we're all real people, right? So she, of course, was amazing and supportive, but how my mom did, she had a little bit of a temper, and she could be difficult sometimes, and she mispronounced words all the time, which is funny as a communicator. She used to mispronounce words all the time. It used to drive me nuts. So we also talk about the funny, quirky things that she did. So that's a really great way to honor her, because we honor her as a human being with all her gifts and all her flaws.
Right.
Gifts and flaws, right?
Exactly. So if you were to kind of step back, Dorothy, is there any particular book or anything like that that's really inspired you as a business owner, or as a communicator, or as a community volunteer?
So I know this is terrible to say, but I don't read as many books as I should, because I feel like I'm always running in 52 million different directions. But 2 things really inspire me. One is movies. I am such a visual person. So some of my close friends know this about me. I have seen every single movie that has ever won the best at the Academy Awards. Every single one since 1927. I've seen all of them. So I've seen every single movie, and I look back on some of those movies and the inspiring stories that they tell. And to me, it's the way in which they tell them. So sometimes when I watch a movie, it's not just the story, it's the way in which they tell it. And it reminds me of being a communications person on the way in which you tell stories. And I play the piano. So I love Mozart.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Mozart. I love Beethoven. I also love big band music. I love big band music. I love New Age music, I love country. I love to play anything on the piano. And sometimes I'll sit in front of the piano for 2 hours and just play.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I just love that. So I'm terrible. It's not terrible. I don't really have a book.
No. I mean, not everybody's a reader, but like you said, you're a visual person. So you're into movies and you love music and you know how to play the piano. And if that's, inspiring and relaxing to you,
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think we all need to find the one thing or the two things that, or three things or whatever that really get us going. So, all right. So Miss Dorothy, my finale question is always, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done and how does it inspire you today?
Okay. Seriously, the bravest thing I've ever done is literally starting my own starting my own company. And here's why. Starting my own company was not textbook at all. In fact, when I, again, speak to classes or just to anyone really about starting my business, mine is not what you would call a typical way. I never sat down and wrote a business plan. I didn't ask for funding. I didn't have goal. Here's really what happened. I was going through a terrible divorce and my ex-husband had depression issues. My father died, and I was working at a job and I was let go. So the trifecta of crap, and in the middle of it, I was like, I really don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I have to move out of my house. I had to take care of my father's estate, which was very complicated and awful, and I didn't have a job. So I had a colleague call me from Visit Baltimore, our tourism, CVB, and said, "What are you working on?" I said, "Well, evidently I'm not working on anything." So he said, "Can I hire you for 3 months?" I said, "Yes, you can." And he said, "Well, are you going to start your own company?" I said, "Yeah, I don't even know how to do that." And he said, "Well, I think you should." I said, I'm not going to do that." And I woke up one morning and I thought, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Nothing, zero. I'm going to start my own company. I'm not really sure how to do that, but I'm going to look it up. And I did. And I have to tell you, if I had not been in that spot, I'm not sure I would have ever started my own company. I'm not entrepreneurial by nature per se. And I'm very traditional. Was brought up in a very traditional home. And I am actually proud of myself that I did it because I was living on my own. I had some money in savings, but it wasn't like and I didn't even know how to start my own company. I didn't know how to register it. I didn't know how to do a contract. I didn't know how to do I knew how to do proposals, but, it was scary. I was like, I was maybe 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just did it. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to step off the ledge and hopefully I don't fall on my face. And my motto always was, well, if I have to get a real job, I will. And I have to do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Wow. But that's brave still.
I think it is because I love, because you know why, Tracy? Because when I was living on my own in this tiny apartment with hardly any furniture, and again, some money in the bank, it's not like I was broke, but I didn't have $1 million. And I was going through all this stuff. And I had a girlfriend say to me one day, you know what? I couldn't do what you did. First of all, I couldn't get divorced the way you did. And I just couldn't have done everything you did. And she said, do you ever think about this? Like, what if you were in a car accident, and you couldn't work? I said, yeah, I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should have, but I didn't. I'm a Pollyanna. I just didn't even think about that. I guess that could have happened. Something horrible could have happened and I would not have been able to work. I would have been on my own, whatever. I didn't think about that. I was like, I'm just going to make it happen. That's the way it is. Just doing it.
Right. Well, you believed in yourself. You knew that you were going to make it work because
I believed in myself. But I also think that I was fortunate that I had believe it or not, a lot of women colleagues who either had their own business or just supported me. They'd send me a card. I know you can do it. You got this, or, hey, I thought of you the other day. I'm going to refer you to somebody. I'm not sure if it's going to lead to anything. And even just, my friends who would call me, how you doing today? How are things going with you? Not just with my business, but, how are you doing?
Right.
So I have a great family. My sisters were supportive and we're here for you. And,
right.
And my brother-in-law, just everybody. So part of it is, I surround myself with wonderful people who I love. But truly, I don't think I would have ever done that. If my parents were alive and I was living someplace else, I would have never started my own company. I just know that I wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you did because I think you're serving a great role in the community, both with your company and through just your being a connector and connecting people and being so inclusive and getting involved in the things that you get involved in. And I want to say congratulations to you also for the recognition that you're going to be getting from PRSA Maryland for your, success as a business owner. And so congratulations, Dorothy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm always humbled when I get things like that, because I'm in, there's so many, there's actually a lot of talented people in Baltimore and in DC and around, and I work with a lot of really great PR people. So it's always, it's wonderful to get get an accolade from my peers, but it always humbles me as well. So
yeah, well, it's well deserved.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. And I just, I'm so excited for when the episode comes out. I know that you dropped a couple of truth bombs in there, a lot of gems. People are going to definitely get something out of this. I just know. And I just wish you continued success in your work, Dorothy.
Thank you. Talk to you soon, Tracy.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.